Okay, why don't we get started, and people will continue to jump on. The first item that we had on the agenda, we were looking for an update from our logistics crew. I think it's just Tony on right now. But Tony, do you have any updates for us on possible locations for our two meetings?
Yep, and Jihan was a part of that process.
Right, Jihan.
So we do have, so the committee met to try to figure out what would be the best location for north of 690 and south of 690. We reflected on the 10 previous sites, thinking maybe one of those sites might be feasible for one of the locations. But we also brainstormed other possibilities, including the library, the former galleries, and the stadium. Can you hear me? The stadium as a possibility as well. So we ended up with, we agreed that we really wanted to make sure we had it at locations where people could either walk to it, drive up to it, or be transported by public transportation. And so that eliminated some of the other possibilities. It also said to us that we need to think about parking and some of those locations downtown, while they might seem like they're a good possibility. For us, it just seemed like it was too much of a hassle trying to figure out like the parking for people, like where would people park? We ended up deciding tentatively that they would be at, for the north side, for the north of Route 690, at Pastimes Athletic Center. It's on North Salina Street. And then for the south of 690, we decided initially for the Salt City Market. But again, like I said before, that's right in the heart of downtown, so parking is a challenge. Jackie fortunately suggested that we think about the South Side Innovation Center, which is on South Salina Street, adjacent to Duncan Bright. And so we have a call, Gian is called into them. We're waiting to hear, we'll probably hear from them in the next week, whether or not that's a possibility. They can host 50, 60 people. And that was, I didn't say this, but that was the other thing that we were considering is we wanted in a location where a sizable number of people can attend. And our challenge with Pastime is that they can only accommodate 25 people. So I think we wanted to hear from the commission, should we, they have already agreed to allow us to have host, but should we look further or should we just settle on that? So that's kind of where we are in this process. Hopefully the Southside Innovation Center will be the south of 690 location. And north of 690 would be Pastimes, but we're just a little anxious about the numbers.
And is that 25 people in addition to our committee or total?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Jihan, do you know the answer to that question?
I believe it's 25 total because the room that Mike sent was a little small. He did say that on Wednesday or Thursday there will be a basketball game, so he'll move us into the other room, which might be like less noisy. But yeah, so one day there's gonna be a baseball game, the other day there'll be a basketball practice. But yeah, I mean, but yeah.
So we also thought about, so here's some of the other places that we thought about for the north side. Again, we want the full commission's feedback or suggestions to us. We thought about Grant Middle School. It's a great location. Again, the challenge for us is going to be if we do it at a school, we no longer have the resources that we had previously, where both Jihan as a substitute teacher and um, uh, what's her name?
Robin.
Robin, thank you. They had access to technology that, facilitated the process for us. So we don't necessarily have those tools available to us now that it's summertime, right? So,
Yeah, and just concerned too about like the custodian, if they'll be available in the summer. That's why I didn't want to add any schools that we picked, just because like there might not be anyone to close it up to.
John, your hand is up.
I just wanted to put my vision of what the final two meetings are and have Gerald, Josh, and or Marissa correct me if I'm wrong. These meetings are just to show the final map that we are going to present to the Common Council, and I don't see us having interaction with the crowd other than mingling with the crowd and answering questions, just like one of the I-81 meetings. We're not going to sit at tables. We're not going to have back and forth. There's going to be no microphone. If people want to talk to us, they can approach us individually, talk to us face to face. The only technology we would need is to have, if our consultants aren't there, just have a WebEx connection for them to answer any questions that might come up that are specific to them. Josh being map expertise, Gerald being redistricting expertise that we can't answer. So these should be very simple meetings. But we are going to need enough space to accommodate people we're going to have one giant printed map and people can look at it and ask us questions. So that's correct me if I'm wrong, folks. That's what I was thinking these meetings would be. We're not taking feedback. Thanks.
So John, thank you so much.
Tony, Babette, and then Bruce.
Sorry, Molly.
No.
So yeah, thank you for saying that, John, because that was the other part of what we wanted to ask the commission about. We wanted to say, so what will these meetings look like? Will there be this interaction? Because if we don't need the technology like we did for the other meetings, then that makes a difference in locations as well. So thank you for reminding me about that.
Babette?
SCRC has the credit union on, like, I think it's on the corner of North Salina, and I can't think of that side street, but there's a big church there. I went to an event that had like a big basement area that was actually pretty nice. And if we're not really worried about technology, I'm not sure if they have a parking lot, but there's that big church right behind the SCRC Credit Union on North Salina Street.
I wrote it down.
Bruce?
Two things. One, I mean, that sounds like a plan, John, but I don't know about the optics of it to be there when the media might be covering it because it's the last map, and whether it looks good for us to say no questions, no discussion, whether that's in fact how it's done with others as well. I mean, I understand the finality of this map. It goes directly to the Common Council, but I'm just concerned about what people might interpret if we don't have any interaction and the media is covering it. The second thing is I don't know whether, in fact, the Destiny is part of the city boundaries, but if it is, parking would be taken care of, and they might have a room that would be appropriate to what we want to do. That's all.
It's a good point, Bruce. I think we would have to be very, very clear, maybe even a very light introduction. Doesn't necessarily have to be Mike and all of that, but just like, these are the final maps. We invite you to go around, look at them, you know, and we'll have a little table set up with the comment cards explaining that the comments will be put into our after action report. So probably something like that, just to hammer in that message that, you know, that this is for you to comment on for the official record. And we're displaying it for you. Charles, go ahead.
Was there somebody that was before me?
Nope.
Okay. So, to Bruce's point, Destiny does have like a community room. I've been trying to get in contact with the guy who's supposed to kind of oversee it, and I can't ever get in contact with him. He's supposed to get back in touch with me. His name is Mr. Kennedy, I believe. But they do have a room like up on the 4th or 5th floor or something like that. And Destiny is within the boundaries of the city. So if somebody can get in contact with them, after you do, let them know I'm looking for them.
Another thing, I don't know, because it's an internet issue, we had ruled out McChesney Park, the community center, the first time because of Wi-Fi. But it's right next to Grant. It's right there, and they have, you know, big gymnasium. So we could do, you know, the consultants on just, you know, a hotspot kind of thing, just for that one-on-one thing. But I don't think we need like a whole thing. So that could be a option. It's right there in the neighborhood. So there's that as well. All right. Do you feel like you have enough to run on to bring back to the other gals, Tony?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
And I added a comment to Bruce. We ruled out Destiny because of walking.
Okay. Any other information that you want to give to Tony so that they can make an informed decision for about the format of that meeting?
So we would probably like to get back to the commission in a week's time, whether by email or whatever, but we'll get back within a week.
That's good. Depending on how today goes and what happens today in terms of these maps and voting, everything we'll decide, and we'll have a discussion if we need to meet Monday, or like what our even next meeting looks like. We will see how today goes. Okay. All right. So with all of that said, I think we can move into discussion of the new map C that Josh had sent out. So it's an open discussion. Charles, is your hand up new or? Okay. All right, so I'm just going to open the floor for people who want to discuss map C. I don't know, Josh, if you wanted to kind of do a little intro. I know you gave us an email, but if you wanted to say anything else before we kick off here.
No, I mean, I think it incorporates the two changes that we had discussed at the last meeting with regards to the Sedgwick Historic District and that little triangle area north of 690 there. And then at the public meeting on that Tuesday, there were, I didn't attend, but I was informed that there were some comments about a particular African-American neighborhood on the other side of I-81 and sort of their desire to be included with the South Side. And so I ended up swapping that for the portion of the valley that's on the east side of I-81. And, you know, kind of took a look at everything just to make sure all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed in terms of, you know, legal requirements and things along those lines. And it ended up even lowering the population deviation amongst the districts even lower. I mean, like, it's pretty close to perfect. I mean, I said it in the email, but like, there might be a better redistricting plan out there, but I can tell you in the past 20 years, I've never seen one. I mean, kudos to all of you. I mean, honestly, I mean, the process has been stellar, but like, I've really never seen as good a redistricting plan as the one that you guys came up with. Not perfect. There is still the Salt Springs thing, but you know, there's always nothing's ever perfect, you know.
Okay, perfect. Tony, why don't you lead us off then?
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I wanted to say thanks to Josh for his comments, because I thought that that was very well appreciated, and I think deserved, because I think this commission has worked very, very hard to keep politics out of it. I mean, like, do all the things that really make sense for nonpartisan. I do have a couple of questions, not questions, but like, when they talk about compactness,
Mhm.
would it be an issue that District E in the C plan has that elongated tip? And the same thing for districts B and C. District B has this sort of southwest pointer, and District C has a southeast pointer. And it looks, I don't know if that's an issue or not, or if somebody would take, exception. I don't know. Just asking the question.
No, no. I mean, I can run some compactness scores on this and compare it to the compactness of like the current districts. They're far more compact than the current districts. Actually, I shouldn't say far more, because I haven't seen the numbers, but I know that they are more compact than the current districts, and I compare them to other compactness of other district plans that are fine. I mean, there's nothing in this plan that jumps out at me that says this portion. The only things that aren't compact are the places where the boundary of the city itself has been annexed, usually for water rights. On the west side of the city there's a couple of like thin strips that come out because there's a reservoir there, or there's a water treatment plant there. And at some point in like the past 40 years, that was annexed into the city. And because the city boundaries themselves are not all that compact in those particular instances, that'll affect your compactness score. But no, I mean, no, it's just they're not. There's no portion of this map that sort of stretches a really thin line to attach two things that aren't really geographically near each other. There's nothing that I would describe as like a tendril or a tentacle or anything like that. I mean, if you guys want me to send over some examples of districts that are not compact, so you can compare them to the districts in Syracuse, I can show you. But like the eyeball test itself these are fine.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bruce. Oh,
You're
hold on.
muted.
Take up.
There we go.
There we are.
This is sort of let's be prepared question. Would you anticipate, given the public input that's occurred over the last bunch of meetings, any sort of objection or pushback to this map? And secondly, relatedly, Elmwood looks particularly cut up. And I don't know if they have enough of a community of interest for us to be concerned about, one, fixing it, or two, getting any input about that. And if there's no pushback from them about it, then there's nothing that we need do. That proves the point that it's okay. But would anyone else here anticipate any objections from anyone that we ought to be aware of, even if there is no give and take at the meeting?
I'm curious about Maritza and Bob's point of view. Maritza, I'm hoping maybe you can speak a little bit to Elmwood, and Bob, also just that swap that we've made on that part of the valley. Those are you guys' neighborhoods, so I just didn't know if you had any extra insight for that.
Well, that was something that I did notice right away, was that the Elmwood being cut out of the south side. And I think our counselor spoke at the meeting down on Seneca Turnpike that day about that. And he was told that Elmwood was still in the district, but now it isn't. You've also taken Corcoran out of the South Side district, and looks like you might have two high schools in that District B now. So I would say, yeah, you're going to get some pushback because he already brought it up.
I thought that Corcoran was in B already, along with Fowler before.
No, well, I went to Corcoran. I mean, that was always part of the South Side. I'm not sure what time it got moved, but it's definitely not in that what was the third district prior.
Right, because Corcoran is in with Strathmore, which is District B on our map,
Yeah,
and it has been in the whole draft.
say that again. Corcoran's not in District B. On Plan C. Corcoran would be in District B.
That's what she just said. Yeah.
And
Right,
Fowler,
Corcoran is in with the rest of the west side.
and Fowler is also in District B.
Yes. But they both have been, even in our first draft, Bob.
Oh, okay, I must have. I thought Corcoran still remained, but okay. But
No, when we swapped out Strathmore and put it in B, it moved into that when we had that draft. We have some chat going on. Okay.
Can you bring the map up while we're talking?
Sure. Jihan?
I can try. I'm on my phone too, but I will try.
Okay, well,
Give me a
Jihan's
second.
looking at that. Rita, why don't you go ahead? I know you don't quite live in Elmwood, but you know, if you have anything or just in general.
Elmwood is literally 3 blocks away from where I live. And that whole area is very disparate. And I don't know if they have an association. I know the Greater Strathmore neighborhood area, which includes Elmwood, we pretty much have general meetings every month. So Elmwood is kind of considered part of that area. And I'm trying to figure out where it is on the map.
You're saying Elmwood is part of more Strathmore. The
Greater Strathmore, yeah.
Okay.
When they set the boundaries up, they set up a really wide area that doesn't include not only includes the original Strathmore neighborhood, as it was in the 1920s and 30s, but expanded it all the way to South Geddes and down to, I believe, South Ave. A little piece of that in order to catch people who lived in Elmwood. But that's just the definition for the Greater Strathmore Neighborhood Association.
Okay.
I want to add something. I live not far. I live in Kirk Park, and I live a couple blocks from Elmwood. And I would rather have Elmwood back where it was, and then take Moore, and that is a very small population over on Moore, and that David was talking about at the last meeting. And there's a lot of students there who live in those housing. A lot more students lately that have moved into those housing over the last couple of years. So, yeah, Jahan, I can bring the map up if you want to give me hosting, because I don't want to necessarily see like you have like I'm talking about our map.
Yeah, make that Beth the host.
I can bring it up.
So the line that splits Elmwood down the middle does so primarily because on the east side of that road, the neighborhood is predominantly African American. And on the west side of the road, it is predominantly white. There's like a very stark demographic split. I'm trying to log into my computer at work so that I can actually pull that up, but it's like a very stark contrast where everything to the right of that line are African American neighborhoods, and everything to the left of that line are not. And in the sort of sort of formulation and reformulation of the African American majority district, that portion of Elmwood was included, I think, in the draft B, one of the revisions of the draft B. I'm trying to, let me see if I can. Okay.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah,
at
just
the
give me one
bottom-
second. I'm logged into the computer at work now. I just have to pull up the. I just have to pull up ArcGIS so that I can actually look at this.
Okay, so while Josh is doing that, John and then Charles.
I'm looking at the map on my phone, and to me, the Elmwood neighborhood has always been south of Glenwood and northwest of South Ave. So in that area, yes, Corcoran High School is in that area too. The dividing line where we have on South Ave, the other side of South Ave is St. Agnes Cemetery. And there's nobody living there that's living. And if you drive through from South Ave through St. Agnes Cemetery, you end up on Valley Drive. So that is, to me, is a perfect boundary between the neighborhoods. And the northern boundary we have going up there is like Summit Ave and the Park Road. And Josh is absolutely correct. On the right side of that is predominantly African Americans, and left of that line is predominantly Caucasians. And the part over Moore, Benedict, that includes the Benderson Heights Syracuse housing project. And I don't think Syracuse University students are living there. I know there's a lot of single family houses on Benedict, Moore, Berwyn. We really encapsulated a significant African American population that had been left out of the majority district by moving that line. And the Roney Road apartments, that's all immigrants, and most of them are from Asia and Africa. I don't see how the way we drew the line where the students live a little farther to the east is in, can't get it small enough to read the street name, but that's more where the students live. There's some duplex housing up in there, and the graduate students rent those, but the part we included is very, very much an African American neighborhood. So that's my comments.
Well, I live over there, and I mean, there are a lot of people of color who live there. It's not as much as you think or it used to be. I would rather have Elmwood come back into the South Side than to have Moore and Benedict.
Okay, Charles.
So I was looking at my notes from the Northeast Community Center and Chole's complaint. And his complaint was that that section, he believed that the line should be South Ave, which it actually is. So I mean,
yeah, that was a decision that was made in one of the revisions of Plan B after that public feedback. Initially, I believe most of Elmwood was in, all of Elmwood was in with the rest of the South Side, and that portion on the to the west of South Ave ended up getting moved into District B after that public feedback. That change was in direct response to some public feedback of one of the previous drafts. I can look here and see if it was which plan it was. I believe it was Plan B. No, it was Plan A. Yeah, it was in response to Plan A, which had all of Elmwood in with the South Side. Plan B then moved that line to South Ave,
And I just want to add, only one person brought that up. Literally, one person brought that up at that meeting about Moore and Benedict.
I wish. Okay.
Wish what?
I was just gonna say, I wish Jackie was on. You know, she's the resident Southside expert. So
I am also the residence. I live on the south side. I have lived here. I was born here, have lived here all of my life. My parents live here. All of my family still lives up on the south side. I live on Kirk Ave in front of the park. And I'm going to tell you that we probably consider Elmwood. As a matter of fact, I am one of the regional coaches for Girl Trek. And they just put out they want Black women to walk in the 1,000 blackest neighborhoods in this country. And that part of they do not have that as one of our maps. They have what they're calling North Elmwood as one of the blackest neighborhoods in the country. It is not Moore Benedict Act. It is not.
okay. All right. I'm glad we do have you on today's call then, Baba, because you are.
I know you
absolutely
forget I'm
expert.
Black,
I'm
Molly,
sorry.
but I am, and I live over here.
70,
Okay.
270, 300,
All right. So,
400,
Charles, is your hand
500,
still up
600.
from before?
Okay. There's about 1,000 people living in that portion of Elmwood.
1,000
So
total?
about, yeah, roughly. So if the commission were considering making Elmwood whole there, then 1,000 people would need to come out of another portion of the South Side District.
How many people were you put in with the Moore Benedict Smith Lane area?
Hang on, let me find that. Moore Benedict Smith Lane. That's in Elmwood?
No, that's just across
That's
81.
That's a Calvin. That's the area that the other person was talking about that you now have moved over to us.
That was the swap that
That was
made
the
that
swap.
little
Yeah.
Oh,
far into the
yeah,
valley.
that's let's see, 1,500, 1,600, 17, about 1,800 people.
And how many are African American?
That's going to be a little difficult for me to figure out immediately.
No worries. Okay.
Let me I can look at the percentages and give you a rough number. Just give me a sec.
Jason, can you speak to the point that you are making in the chat?
It's about 1,000.
So
700 to 1,000, somewhere in there.
I would rather take my 1,000 at Elmwood back.
all right. So
Well,
the,
there's,
I was
but
gonna say,
that
the thing with
portion
the West
of
Side
Elmwood
District.
isn't 1,000 black people, though.
Right.
That portion of Elmwood, let me just look. That portion of Elmwood's probably about 400 black people.
Okay, I still want those 400.
Okay.
All right. So the thing with the West Side District is because it's so big, is there's not a heavy population on that side of the city. So to find another neighborhood to make up that 1,000 people will then create a huge domino effect, reverberating through the north side, through the east side, and then back down to the south side again. So just want that to be known. To find a neighborhood that is condensed for 1,000 people is going to be tough to find elsewhere to then put back into that West Side District. And to know that that neighborhood, it's kind of split, like we've been saying, for Elmwood, where, you know, half of it's with the south side and half of it's with the west side.
I thought we were only, when we were talking about the maps, that we were only gonna do that little triangle area. And then some other small area. I didn't know we really were considering moving this, because literally one person made that comment at a meeting.
That portion of the map hasn't changed. That was like that in the previous draft.
Elm was on the south side.
No.
No, not since the very first draft.
No, you mean I've been
For the
reading
past for the past two drafts, the Elmwood has been split like that. Yeah. Draft B has that split. Draft C has that split. Yeah, I could go back in my records and see when that change was made, but it was probably a couple months ago.
One of the first changes, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the first changes that were made.
So that portion hasn't been an issue until today.
What did we swap out then to put in that more Benedict area?
It was that part of the valley and like Nob Hill Apartments and all that. That was the swap.
Yeah, it was the Nob Hill Apartments. There's 3 apartment complexes there on the other side of I-81. It's basically the swath on the south side of the city on the east side of I-81. So on the right side of I-81 there's a bunch of like medical practices and a bunch of looks like a strip mall or something, and then there's 3 apartment complexes in there.
All right, so I've just totally made a fool of myself.
No, you didn't make a fool of yourself.
I've been looking
You're advocating for what you believe in.
I will say this then, though. I would wow, that's tough, because because both of those areas have very large apartment complexes. Though the one up Brighton is a little bit bigger, but Nob Hill is bigger than the Ida Benderson. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough, you know.
Tony, why don't you go? And then we'll go Charles.
Thank you. My recollection is that one of the counselors at the Northeast Community Center said Elmwood is not a part of the South Side. And I thought at that meeting we clarified and said, no, it is.
I thought we did too.
Part of the South Side. That's what I thought happened. I thought that was not that long ago. So that's why I'm confused a little bit, Josh, when you say that it hasn't been since draft A. I thought it was a part of draft B, but maybe I'm not remembering.
He was speaking of a very specific street. And so when Graham zoomed in, the street that he was looking at was, we were like, no, like that is, but I think the problem is that we're talking about a neighborhood and sometimes we're talking about a street. He was talking about a street, most likely the street that he lives on, because now he's in with someone else. So he was talking about a street.
Okay, thank you for saying that, because I thought he was talking about Elmwood neighborhood.
No.
Oh, okay.
Charles, then Larry.
So like I said, in my notes, Joel was complaining about Elmwood being part of Strathmore and that the dividing line should be South Ave. And then when we zoomed in, we showed him it was that the South Ave was the dividing line, and then he was like, "Oh, okay."
Okay.
So I mean, and as I remember from our discussions, that when we were looking at partnering neighborhoods, we said Elmwood and Strathmore would partner because they were similar socioeconomically, just like we talked about how, you know, part of the valley, North and South Valley, were kind of like partnering neighborhoods.
Larry, then Babette.
My recollection is similar to Charles, what he just said, although I thought the commissioner sort of separated Elmwood and he called Lower Elmwood, part that we have in the minority majority South District. And I thought he and other people at the meeting were comfortable with that. And I think the map is good as it is.
Right, because what he said was that there's two Elmwoods. There's a North Elmwood that is above South Ave, and there's a South Elmwood that's below South Ave.
Babette.
So I know one of the things that we talked about in all the meetings is that each of the districts had what we would typically consider a more affluent neighborhoods, and then those that were struggling. And so I think if you take the valley out of the south side, then you don't have any real affluent neighborhoods in the south side.
The entire South Valley is still in that district. The entire South Valley west of I-81 is still in that district.
But how big is that though, really?
I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000 people.
That's, I'm okay. It would just be so helpful if the map was up while we were talking.
Well, here, let me see if I can share mine, and if this will work, because I'm remoted into my my computer at work. So let me see if this will work. You're going to see yourselves for a second, and then I'm going to flip over here. Can you see the map?
Yes.
Okay, so in the South Valley here, this is 81 right here. This entire section of the South Valley down here is included in that South Side district. So the portion that got taken out is the 1,000 people over here on the other side of the highway. And then if we look at the Elmwood portion, I'm getting a lot of lag here because I'm okay. So the dividing line here is South Ave. And on this side of South Ave, we have a very predominantly African-American neighborhood. And on the other side, it is much less so. Not as low as, say, Strathmore, but there's sort of a distinct cutoff there. So sorry. Yeah. So this entire portion of the South Valley down here is still within that District A. Let me see if I can flip the districts up here. Plan C. Yeah. So this sort of, let me get rid of this. Okay, there we go. Is that helpful? Now let me flip back so people can see. Can everybody hear me? I can't hear anybody.
We're
Are we
all
just-
just being quiet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just let me know if you need to see something specific, if I should zoom in or, toggle on other data layers or things like that.
Tony, is your hand up?
Marissa's hand is up too.
Oh,
Yes, I have a question for Babette. Could you live with that exchange? Meaning Elmwood being in that district and more in the others not?
It's really funny, Tony, having lived here most of my life, except for when I lived out on the West Coast. And it's funny listening to Maritza thinking that Elmwood has always been considered part of Strathmore, and when you live on the south side, we've never considered Elmwood as part of Strathmore. And I remember growing up that actually Valley started at Newell, not Valentine, and over the years that line has just moved down. So it's just I don't know. I don't know.
That's fair.
I don't know.
That's fair.
I don't know.
I have a quick comment about Elmwood in particular. You see that neighborhood right above the E on your map before it gets to the park? So those set of streets right there, I'm wondering if that would be considered into the south side. And then from the park north would then be the west side. Just, again, throwing out ideas, nothing crazy here. If that
Josh, can you just make it a little bit, so I can just see those streets a little bit better, please, sir?
Yeah,
If you can.
trying.
So it would be like Edgewood, Hutchinson, Elmwood Ave, or Fairfield. That set of neighborhoods before it reaches the park. If that would be a compromise of some sort.
Jay,
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean, we still got to like put population back on the west side, but it's a start of what we would call negotiations, right?
Okay, one thing to consider there is on all of those streets, so on Clayton, Hutchinson, Fletcher, Elmwood Ave, Craddock Street. If we do that, then every house that's on the west side of the street is going to be in the Strathmore, the District B, and everything on the other side of the street will be in District A. That's not a game changer for me. I just wanted to make sure that the commission was aware that if you draw the line across these sets of streets, that the line's going to be in the center of the street.
Good point.
Maritza, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, most of the people in the area consider, like, once you go past South Ave, where Glenwood ends and Valley Drive begins, most people consider that street, that South Avenue boundary, as once you pass that to Valley Drive, that's considered the valley around here. That's how people think about it. So I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud at this point, just trying to visualize.
But Marissa, and I will add to that, how long have you lived over there?
24 years.
And I would add to that, I think in the past few years, as people think of, you would just really, growing up here, you would think of like the south side, the north side, the west side, and the east side. Like you didn't even get into all these neighborhood things. And I think as people have been trying to revitalize their neighborhoods and literally disconnect from certain parts of the city, like the south side and the west side, because of the high crime and poverty rates. So they've pushed more to the neighborhood names. Because when we got that Girl Trek listing, we were like, what? Like we don't consider ourselves like that at all. So I will agree with you on some points, and I think in some ways it makes sense as people are trying to be more neighborhood based and less pushed into larger blocks of areas because of those kinds of things. And I will say it's just personally a struggle for me because having lived here 60 plus years, 50 plus 59 years, whatever. Just thinking about these neighborhoods very differently than we're talking about them right now. So I'm gonna let go of my stuff because at the end of the day, I just want to do what's best for my community, for the city as a whole, and just making sure that we have great lines where people can be represented. And then that we will vote on this by consensus and majority wins.
Well, it's Bruce.
Me? Okay.
Yes.
Just an observation and a question about something that was referred to earlier. The observation is when I was born in the Bronx, it wasn't near the South Bronx, but the South Bronx moved when I didn't. And so these neighborhoods, as was referenced by a few of you already, are dynamic things and certainly not objective in any, here's the line, one side or another way. A second one of you talked about, and that I was hoping that would be a conversation starter about the need for diversity and the concern about the South Side, that district not having diversity. And that was one response was that the Southern Valley area was diverse, and that added to the diversity of that group, of that particular district. Is that still a concern of anybody in any of these different districts? And the reason I'm raising it's because that the counselors who have to be very attentive to these lines, I would prefer would be attentive to the diversity in these districts as well.
Any hands? I still think that there's enough economic diversity in a lot of the neighborhoods. We can't kind of really help where there are some concentrated areas of poverty because that's where the map is. That's where everyone lives. And so there are certain, it was brought up on the north side. I think there is an element of that in the south side as well. But the way I see it is that there's some diversity in those districts, but it also just means that they can pick someone who truly represents them. No other neighborhood can kind of come in and kind of dominate, even though they're a minority. So I don't see that as terribly problematic. I do think we have enough diversity in terms of the economic status. Charles, go ahead.
Personally, granted, I don't live there. But I've been home shopping. I mean, I'm comfortable with the South Valley in terms of this diversity, as well as I mean, socioeconomically, but also culturally. I mean, because that minority majority district is what, 50,
Four.
54%. So, I mean, it's barely a majority of minority folks down there. Oh, and about that Bronx comment, you can thank Robert Moses for that. That's all.
Oh boy. let's not get into Robert Moses in this, please.
Maritza, go ahead. Your hand is up.
This is more of a logistical question. When we print up this map to be presented at the upper and lower 690 meetings, for lack of a better word, are the neighborhoods going to be printed on there, or is it just going to be the district's letters, like District A, District B?
I can make a map. Like I can make a map that has the neighborhoods. I can make two maps, one that has the neighborhoods and one that's like more simplified to show the district lines. Yeah, I can make whatever you need made up. I mean, it's up to the
I'm
commission
just
on how they want
curious.
to present it.
Yeah, I don't go one way or the other. It doesn't matter to me, but I was just wondering, as people are looking at these maps, if having the neighborhoods there would make it a little bit easier for them to kind of get a gist of what we've been working with.
Yeah, I can include the neighborhood boundaries on that map. That's fine. That's easy to do. It's just toggling another layer and then just working with the layer transparencies to make sure everything's visible.
Graham, go ahead.
I am not sure I like that idea at all. I think I mean, just to say how it seems to me, that seems like inviting people to point and say, well, you divided this neighborhood based solely on, taking in the whole map and looking for neighborhoods that get cut between districts, whether they live there or not. It seems like asking for trouble where there's no need to me, but if that's what we decide, that's fine.
I was just asking, I just threw the idea out, just kind of brainstorming. If that's not amenable, if you think it's going to set up some kind of conflicts between neighborhoods, then let's just not do it. But I just threw that out there as an idea.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns? Bob, I don't know if we completely addressed what you had said. I mean, the Corcoran was still in that West Side district even before, and so there are going to be there's going to be a district that has two, like we have one district that has no high schools. The North Side district doesn't have any high schools. And so like it wasn't something that really came up when we were talking initially. Just because some of the high schools are located in places that we hadn't kind of focused too much on that. So I just want to make sure that you're okay with this.
Yeah, I was just responding to the question that we think that there's going to be any pushback. And I guess I didn't realize that had been, ultimately I'm out of high school, so I don't care anymore. But, that was part of the South Side. That's where I went. The Elmwood neighborhood is part of the South Side. That's where I used to play when I was a kid. Everything's changed, so I don't go over there anymore.
And I think with the school choice, things have also, that changes the game a little bit too, where you don't have to go to your home school anymore. Hello. I think that changes things. And when we're talking about putting schools in districts. Okay. Other comments, questions, concerns about this draft C? Okay. So, I mean, how many people do we have on today? 1, 2, 3. So there's 12 of us. I don't know if this is like good enough and we want to take a first swipe at a vote, or if like we need changes made. Graham, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification, and Larry brought this up at our last meeting on a Monday night, but I don't actually remember what the answer was. Did we decide that we require a supermajority of the 15 of us, or a supermajority of the voters at that moment in time?
I thought it would be 3/4 of 12 if we voted tonight. Not 3/4 of 15.
Right, I think that is what we had talked about, of the people present. To have that super majority of the people present. I do wish it was everyone today.
So we're present even though we're not in the same venue.
I believe so, because the open meetings law did get extended. Jihan or Marissa can speak to that.
Just checking. Thank you.
Are we getting the clear? Okay. So we can vote. John, go ahead.
We are under a huge time crunch, but if we can have all 15 people Monday, I don't know if that's possible. I'd rather have 12 is a great number, but 15 is better. So if we vote, I'm gonna vote. But if we decide to hold off and hope we get all 15 on Monday, I'm good with that too. So I'm kind of undecided. I just wanted to throw out there in case anyone else is feeling like me.
Undecided on voting or undecided on the map?
Well, I'm decided on the map. I don't know if we should try and have the whole commission, give them one more chance to all be in the same room. And I hate to do that, but I almost think it's better, but that's just spitballing.
So many hands. Okay, so Babette, Larry, Maritza, Bruce, Tony.
I would say if we could try to get more people on Monday, let's wait till Monday. I know Jackie has had a lot of concerns, and what I don't want her to feel like is that we pushed a vote through and she's not here. I think that's just gonna not be good for us.
Larry.